Hello, it's Michelle with 𝗵𝗿𝗁𝗀 𝗀𝗵𝗵, and I want to do a book tag for Book Tag Tuesday, or I think it's called Tag Tuesday. I'm showing that this was from 2015. I found it on an old blog somewhere of different book tags, but it did not say who the creator was. So I don't know. I don't know who to credit, but I wanted to go ahead and do this. It's a coffee book tag, and I just think it's really fun for fall. Black. Name a series that's tough to get into, but has hardcore fans. Well, I don't read a lot of books that have hardcore fans, apparently. Now that I'm doing BookTube, I've discovered there's so many things I haven't read that a lot of booktubers have. But I would say something that's hard to get into, but people get really diehard about, would be the Game of Thrones series. Hi, Marty. This is Marty here next to me. Hey, Pookie. Oh, don't knock my drink over. You gonna stay a while? No. Okay. Peppermint Mocha. Name a book that gets more popular during the winter or a festive time of year. I don't know where my copy of this book is, but I would have to say Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I think that is a very timeless story. It's been made into, there's like, hey, sorry, Marty is just weaving in and out of books on the floor. I think that story has been made into probably thousands of different movies that are somewhat based on the story, whether completely or loosely, and probably hundreds of books as well. And I think it's just so timeless and classic, and there's something so really moving and beautiful about the past, the present, and the future, and figuring out what's really important to each and every one of us. I'm not real into his writing. It's a little bit hard for me to read Charles Dickens. It's maybe too Victorian. I feel like I'm having to constantly wait, what does that mean? But I really love that story though, and that story is very important to me. One of my favorite books from when I was a child though is this book here. It's 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗀 𝗀𝗵𝗃 The Great Rescue, and this is not my original version. I found it at a garage sale years ago, and I think it's about, I can't remember, this evil woman kidnaps some animals that live in the Cabbage Patch, and the kids go looking for these animals, and I think she kidnaps them too or something. But that wasn't the best part for me. My favorite thing about these books, oddly enough, was this. I just wanted to look at this all the time. And as far as stories go, I think my favorite childhood story, my mom read the Ramona Quimby series to me when I was a little girl, and I just absolutely love that story, those stories, and the character of Ramona and all of it. I kind of feel like in some ways I was very similar to Ramona. Just kind of a wild child, but I'm hoping to reread those one day. Here's some more imagery for you. Now, as far as my favorite children's book as an adult, that would be The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. This book, I think it's so good, and one of the things I really love about it is that I've heard so many different theories as to who the real jerk was in the story. Was it the tree, or was it the child who then became a man? It's up for interpretation, but that's one of the things I love though, is that everybody that reads it walks away with their own belief of what it means, which is pretty cool. So if you haven't read it, I really recommend giving it a go. And I think you could, I'll look and see, but you could probably find a YouTube video of this story, you know, if you want to know the story without buying the book kind of thing. But I actually keep this book right next to my desk. with a bunch of my work stuff, just as a reminder of what I think it means. Double shot of espresso. Name a book that kept you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. Okay, I just read one that really kept me on the edge of my seat, and that's The Last House on Needless Street. It was a psychological thriller, and it was definitely a psychological thriller. No question about it. There was parts where it was kind of creepy. There was parts where it was a little bit scary, but like kind of mildly, kind of, you know, vanilla. And then there was some twists and turns though in it that just really shocked me. I didn't see them coming, and I don't know that I'm going to give myself a pass on that, because I think it'd be easy to not see them. But I really recommend it if you like psychological thrillers. Starbucks. Name a book you see everywhere. Okay. Anxious People by Frederik Bachman and the Maidens. I can't remember who that's by, but I see them all over BookTube. I see them in every store I go to. I feel like I hear about them a lot. I haven't decided if I'm going to read either one. I was going to read Anxious People, but then when I heard the synopsis, I kind of don't know if it sounds like something I'd be into. The Maidens, maybe. If you have any thoughts on that subject, on either one of those books, let me know. I'm just not sure. I don't know how I feel. That Hipster Cafe Shop. Give a book by an indie author a shout out. Okay, I've got one that just immediately came to mind. It's an entire series. The Patricia Fisher Mystery Series by Steve Higgs. I really like these books. It's about a woman who, I think she's middle-aged, so I guess she's about my age, maybe a little older than me. I don't remember, but she discovers something about her husband and decides to leave him, and she clears out the bank accounts and goes on a around-the-world cruise and ends up stumbling upon different mysteries on the cruise ship and becomes a sleuth. But she's very human and flawed. She's thick like I am. She's a big girl. She's got flaws. I like that. You know, I'm not a fan of the beautiful, perfect, thin, rich characters. It just kind of, they're not very relatable for me, you know? But I really like his writing. He's just got kind of a fun, witty way of writing. There's this whole little write-up about him living in a little village, and it's just beautiful. It really kind of makes me feel even more attached to his writing in a weird way. But yeah, I can't remember where he lives, but oh, he's British. He's British. Did I say that right? But definitely give him a chance. I'm not sure. I found his books on Amazon. You could probably find them somewhere else if you wanted to, but he writes really good stories. Especially if you like cozy mysteries. You know, I'm going to put this away after I'm done talking to you. Oops, I accidentally got decaf. Name a book that you were expecting more from. You guys. I'm trying to think of which book to mention because there's quite a few I expected more from. Maybe I'll go with Peter Pan. I was very disappointed in that book. I got so excited when I bought it because I love the movie from when I was a little girl. And then I started to read the book and it was just so disappointing. And I've never read like the actual fairy tale kind of story before. So I wasn't prepared for how different it would be and how mean Tinkerbell was. I thought she was this like beautiful, mystical, happy fairy, and she's not. It was so disappointing. It really was. The Perfect Blend. Name a book or series that was both bitter and sweet, but ultimately satisfying. Where is Okay, I almost gave up on this series. I almost decided I didn't want to read any more books from it, and that would be the Harper Connelly series by Charlaine Harris. As many of you know, I've been going through all of her books since, when did I start? You guys, I can't even remember. I think it was the spring or summer I started reading her books, and I've been really enjoying slowly going through all of her books. And what was hard about these books for me was the incest. But I don't know if it's really incest. It's a step-sibling situation. The characters in this book, they met when they were teenagers. They didn't live together very long. And the way that everything's set up, it almost kind of feels like maybe they're supposed to be together, but it feels so wrong though, but it feels like it's supposed to be how it ends up. And so I'm not going to tell you if they end up together or not, or what happens there, but once I decided to just read and go with it and accept that not everybody feels the same way I do, which is fine. You know, like that's part of why I read books. I want to read other takes on things and other beliefs and other communities and other worlds, you know. I started kind of understanding where she was going with it and being okay with it. But I really ended up loving this whole series. The last 2 books were both 5 stars for me, I think, if I remember correctly. And I do intend on reading this series again one day, probably 10 or 15 years from now. That's usually what I do. If I read a series and I really like it, I wait years before I pick it up again, so I can really enjoy it and not remember all the things that happened. Green tea. Name a book or series that is quietly beautiful. A book or series that is quietly beautiful. Oh, you know what book I really thought was beautiful and comforting in a way? The Shanghai Girls by Lisa C. This is a coming-of-age story about 2 sisters. If I remember correctly, it spans the entire span of their lives, and it's just very beautifully written, and it's very emotional. I think I cried a couple times, but it's very heart-wrenching and inspiring. It's like there's a part of this book that I've took with me after reading it, and I have read it more than once. I don't usually give myself as much time between an individual book as I do reading a whole series. I did write down here on the back that I love the way Lisa C. writes. I get very invested in her books and very attached to her characters. Ooh, makes me want to read it again. It's about loss, jealousy, sacrifice, love, and it's an emotional look into the history of China. Wow. That sounds even better than I remember. Doesn't that sound beautiful, though? And Earl Grey. Name your favorite classic. My favorite classic. That would have to be To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I think this is a very beautiful book. I love reading it usually spring or fall, when the seasons are changing. Doesn't really matter which season, but I like reading it. It's just kind of, I got this as a gift from my brother when I turned 13, and I read it that year, and I've read it almost every year since. I didn't this year, though. I feel like this book opens up my connection with my child within, because I feel a real connection with Scout, the main character of the book. And also, I feel like this book reminds me to be open to trying to understand where other people are coming from. I noticed I had a bookmark in here back when I used to use bookmarks. Look what it is, you guys. That's my cat Zelda when she was a kitten. Literally kind of flipping me off because I put her in a witch costume. And this was Halloween of 2008 when she was still a kitten. I forgot that was in here. That is all of the prompts that are in this book tag. Please feel free to comment on any of the prompts that you wish down in the comment section. I love hearing what you guys have to say. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you want to read any of these books. Thank you so much for watching. Happy reading. Bye.